All right. So I am so happy to introduce Jan Guarino, an amazing painter and a brilliant teacher. Jan does all kinds of painting. She does landscape and animals and yeah, she does it all. It's really amazing. Um, and also, let me remind everybody, Jan has a brand new book and it is for sale and you can buy it from her website. And I'm going to have the information for you. So it'll go over a lot of what you're going to see Jan painting today and the things she says. But I've seen Jan teach. It's just brilliant. So Jan, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you so much, Margie. That was awesome of you. I'll just say briefly about the book. It's all the pearls that I say during a class and workshop. And I do find that I'm not looking in any class or workshop or demo for you to paint like me. The idea is to take some of these pearls, as I call them, and utilize the ones that make sense for you. So what it does is it helps enhance your own painting. So, your style is your style that evolves and morphs and shifts. And some of these little things that I'll be talking about today may help you do that. So for me, it's all about the thinking that goes into my painting. So let me switch cameras. And you guys are really fine with coming out of mute and asking any question that you have at any time. So this is an iconic scene of Central Park and the Gastow Bridge, and of course the Dakota and the beautiful building sort of lit up behind it. Winter scene, beautiful reflections. So we got a lot going on here. I'm going to move this off because I can't. I'll introduce it. If anybody needs me to put it back into the screen, I will. Let me talk about my setup a little bit. If I'm right-handed, everything is on my right-hand side. My paints are here. My water bowl is here. My brushes are right back here. These are my brushes. I don't have a lot of brushes here, but a good amount that gives me an opportunity to get all kinds of big washes, small washes, and details. And I'll talk about the brushes as I'm using them. Right here is just a white towel. I don't use paper towels. I find that really kind of wasteful. So what I'll do is, and you'll see me utilizing this drying mat as I paint. I have black ones, but you can't really see me using them as much as I access them. So I made a white one so that you could actually see just how much I'm utilizing it. And that's a big thing for me, is controlling from the water to the paper. I'll dab my brush on here. I do it so fast and so instinctly that it just has become second nature to me. And it helps control how much water is on your brush. I'm using Saunders 140 cold press, and I'm just on a little piece of plastic here, a corrugated plastic. I don't tape it down because I like to paint to the edges. So let me just talk about the colors I'm going to use. I haven't even figured this out yet, but I have a good idea. So I have just a scrap piece of paper, grabbing like a number 12 round. I use mostly rounds, but I have a couple of brushes that I wanted to share with you. So we have kind of this beautiful dark sky, sort of this beautiful glow coming through here. I have my swatches and my colors are on my website. So if you're curious about what paints I'm using and what manufacturers. In fact, you know what? I should tell you about this, and I haven't planned the date yet. I'm going to be doing, where is it? My color. I'll never find it fast enough. My color swatches that I made, I'll have to look for them. I apologize. My color swatches it's kind of old, and I haven't really updated them in a while. So I'm going to be, oh, here it is. This is a downloadable on my website. And it's a lot of colors on here. I've changed some of them. The manufacturers have changed. So I'm going to be demoing this, a free demo of how to create this sheet. And this, as you could see, is a replica of my palette. So I find this very helpful. And the most important part about this is making sure that you go from 100% color to the paper. That's watercolor 101. You need to know how to do that. That's controlling your paper and your paint and your water, all of that good stuff. So I'm going to be doing that again. I have to recreate it, so I thought it'd be great fun to actually just kind of demo it. This color here looks really good for the sky. And I'll tell you the two colors that I just mixed. I don't often mix on my palette. I mix on my paper. It gives it a different kind of effect. It's sometimes a little scary to do that, but I like seeing what happens when things happen on the paper. So I just used my indigo and a little bit of my cobalt violet. And I think that really kind of matches up well. But then we have the issue of the warmth of this, the buildings. So I'm going to be using raw sienna. And you can see already how much I'm accessing this pad all the time. This is my raw sienna. I know some people use yellow ochre. I just happen to have raw sienna in my palette. So I really like that for the buildings, but I want to tone it down a tiny bit with a little bit of pink. And the pink that I use is made by Mamari, Italian Mamari. That's Verzino violet, but it's not opera. It's just a really beautiful pink color. Look a little closer for you guys. And I think that with these colors, I'll be able to kind of make my darkest darks. And I'll explain what I mean by that. As I mentioned, I don't use black or neutral tint or any of those colors. I refer to my color wheel for all of that. Okay. So what that means to me is if I have blue and I have purple and I have yellow, yellow and violet are complements. Together, they should tone each other down. Let's see what happens. So I like doing a little test strip to kind of see what happens. And I'm going to add a little bit of indigo in there. And look at that nice dark color I got with my three colors. And if I throw in a little pink just for a little fun, I have a really beautiful dark. So that creates my darks. And the darker I want to go, the less water I'm going to use. So I think with basically 4 colors, I could achieve this painting pretty easily. Does that make sense to everybody? Color wheel, complements, analogous colors, all of that really always comes into play. The other thing that I think about is how can I not have pieces broken up? So if I add, I'm going to go straight to usually I start with the sky, but there's a glow here that I want to get with my raw sienna. I'm using a silver black velvet, number 20. And I'm going to do these buildings first. And I'm hardly being conscious of where I'm putting it because I do want it to go into the sky a little bit, right? I don't want to break it off. And because I did mask a little bit, I can really go right over and into even my bridge. So I'm always thinking, how much can I get with the colors that I'm using? And I'm also thinking how to get rid of a white piece of paper really fast. So I'm just going to stop here because it's almost too much to continue down into the snow and all of that. But again, that gradation that I was talking about, right? knowing how to, so you don't end up with harsh edges anywhere, any place. You are definitely wanting to know how to shift your colors and have them softly move into areas that you're not ready to paint. That is my Verzino Violet. I'm holding my, be a little too close. I'm holding this at a little bit of an angle. I don't work on an angle because I like to be able to control just how much I want to move myself. And so I'm just dropping some of this glow that might be happening on the buildings in the moment. And something that I always think about is making sure that I have a nice glow going on, that I'm keeping things sort of on the fresher side. I'm dropping the colors. I have not mixed in my palette at all, but beautiful colors coming out of these two colors, okay? And to get a little bit of glow behind the buildings, I did a gradation up because you would expect to see that right in the city. Okay.
What is the pink again?
The paper is Saunders Waterford, 140 Colt.
And the pink color?
The pink color is, it's manufactured by a company called Mamari.
Okay.
I'll put it into view for you guys. Mamari, I have, this is the Verzino Violet.
Okay.
Also use Dragon's Blood, and that is also my indigo. I use those three colors from Mamari. Though they are my favorite colors. It's again on my website, but I love these three colors. If you own any Mamaris, these are the three to own. The Dragon's Blood is like burnt sienna, but much better, much better. It's like no burnt sienna you've ever used. Really a great color. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit of my violet sort of along the side here a little bit. And again, if it bleeds out, it's, that's watercolor. I heard a very interesting take on watercolors the other day. They said you should stop trying to control watercolors and you should listen to them. And I thought that was great. I thought that was such a great comment. So yeah, listen to your watercolors, right? Listen to them. They're there. They're smart. They're very smart, and they have an inner intelligence to them that we often think that we're smarter than they are. I'm just adding a little bit of color to my bridge. Yeah, listen to your watercolors or watch your watercolors and see what's happening with them in the moment, right? That's the beauty and joy of watercolors. My goodness, Oh, and let me just show you also, I'm sure you guys are familiar with, but this is the masking fluid that I use. It's PBO. And I apply it with gum picks. So you don't ruin your brushes, and you have a nice way in which you put them on. So I use, gum picks, not used gum picks. I use gum picks. So, and that's important to know also because, having the right kind of tools is always so helpful to know. While this is wet, I'm just going to give it a little bit of color so there's a little interest in those buildings, right? Of course, always timing with watercolors, just letting them be what they are, I use a lot of Daniel Smith because I love the way they granulate. Specifically, I'm in love with Cascade Green because it breaks into turquoise. Some of their violets, their Imperial breaks into pieces of purple. It's just like a lovely thing to have happen. Now I'm going to work upside down a little bit right now. Let me back out of this. And okay, this is my horizon line. That's where there's some buildings there. And I want to shift that from a little bit of pink there. Okay, this is pretty wet. It is moving. I don't care. Into maybe a little bit of violet, very soft, right? Very soft. I'm tilting my paper and I'm letting it sort of flow into the sky. And this is where I would like it to be a little drier than it is now. So I'm going to go into my indigo. And I'm going to start working my indigo kind of away from my buildings. Okay. So I find that working upside down is a really helpful tool.
I don't know
This is
how.
another good thing, guys. When I find if I'm making too many brush strokes, go to a bigger brush. And I think somebody had a question. No? So if I'm making too many brush strokes, I like to think of when I painting on par. And what I mean by that is if you're golfing and you are golfing on par, you're not really making a lot of marks, a lot of strokes. So let me turn it right up and show you what I'm doing. So I'm just sort of starting to get that conversation of a nice sky there as things start to dry. So I want to think of less brush strokes than more. So I'm switching brushes because if I find I'm just making too many fussy marks with my brush, I'll switch. Tilting my paper a little bit. And if you look, I'm just going to go back to the photo for a second. If you notice, the building rooftops, some of them are a little darker than the sky. So that tells me if my sky goes into my building tops a little bit, I'm going to be just fine. Okay. So when I add color, I add it from the top and I let it move down on its own. And this creates the most beautiful cascade of colors, letting it be a watercolor, letting the paints do the work, and creating that beautiful, soft sky. And if it goes into my rooftops a little bit, so be it. If it goes into an area that I might not want, like right here, I just, push it aside a little bit and stop it. But there's always going to be that glow from the sky. Okay. And when I add color, again, I'm working on an angle. So I'm adding it to the top so as not to disturb this beautiful cascading of granulation that's going on, that very soft thing. I like my skies to have that. So I'm, super careful about that. Just one of the little things that I kind of keep an eye out for. Again, notice I'm just dropping it in from the top, tilting my paper a little bit, and I'm just letting it fall in, just letting it fall in itself. The darker I want my color to go, the more paint I'll add, and I will let less water. So, okay, that's a good place. That's a good start. It may have to go a little darker. We'll see. Usually, of course, we know watercolors dry lighter. So I may charge up. I call this charging up. And I find that, and I'm going back and forth between my purple and my indigo. So you could see I go right into my indigo, grab some purple, and I'm putting them both down. And just tilting my paper and letting it move itself. Rather than, if I could have the gravity and water move it for me, I'd rather do that than my paintbrush. it's just a much nicer sky, much nicer transition. And if it starts to dry, this was a good trick that I learned. I'm sure you guys know the name Antonio Mazzi. I had taken a workshop with him, and he had said that he puts, this is just a spray bottle, but he puts gum arabic, a few drops in his spray bottle. And the gum arabic I had already sprayed my watercolors before. It extends the drying time. So that's a good thing to know also, that you could extend your drying time a little bit, right? That's kind of cool. And okay, I feel like I have a nice glow and I have a nice soft transition. The sky appears to be darker than my building. So just by the nature of it being lit up will give us that feel. I'm going to build a little bit of my bridge. And the reason why I want to do that sooner or later, I can't really do these buildings. They're wet. Things are drying on them. It's not going to give me the marks I want. Can't really do the rooftops because it's too wet. So I'm just going to wait on all of that. So it gives me a nice opportunity to play with what I had talked about before, which was my bridge. Now the bridge is going to be one of the darker areas in the painting. That is let's see if I can go closer for you on this one. Okay, so there we go. If I go off screen, Marjorie's going to let me know. So here I'm mixing, that's my same two colors, but a lot more paint and a lot less water. Now, what's going to deepen it even more is a little bit of raw sienna. Now, interesting, raw sienna and blue doesn't really give me green, which is helpful to know. And it tones down my violet. And now what I'm playing with is my darkest darks, because that's going to matter. It's going to be here, and it's also going to be on the reflections in the water underneath. Oh, I hear a puppy or something. Yeah, if you aren't muted, please mute, because whatever that was, we all kind of heard it. Now, by adding all my colors in here, it makes it a whole lot more dramatic and interesting than just Haynes gray, black. And so I'm going to add a little bit, I'm going to add another color that I didn't talk about, which is my dragon's blood. And dragon's blood is a beautiful deep orange. And that helps tone down things down also. So this is a very colorful bridge right now. However, we are not in Oz, so we want to tone it down a little bit. So my indigo and my dragon's blood will help me to do that. This is just a first pass, but I just love those colorful suggestions kind of underneath my darkest darks. If there's artists out there that love tonals, which I love them. I don't enjoy doing them, but I think they're very nice to, I enjoy seeing them. I don't really enjoy painting them. So if there are tonalists out there, I would say I'm a colorist. Just love, love, love color. So yes, I did introduce another color, which is my dragon's blood. And if you have burnt sienna and you want to try dragon's blood, you'll see the difference. It's really a big difference. But burnt sienna does the trick for sure if you don't have it. But, it's nice to try new things, right? It's just sort of feathered out because that's the embankment of the snow there. So I'm just doing a little lifting. You could see how much I'm accessing this to lifting. So I'm just doing a little bit of lifting. Clean my brush, wipe it, get it dry, lift. So I can really go in there and almost make it exactly down to the paper. And it's important to know that you can do that.
I have a quick question. Are the paints on your palette wet, or do you just wet them as you go along?
So as I mentioned, I will spray them before I start, okay, with just a spray bottle of water and a little gum arabic. So they were sprayed just before I started. And then, as I go in, I might need, so they're kind of dry. I don't love working with wet paint. I find that very difficult to control and much harder to teach it that way. So I'm a little careful about how wet my paints are. I don't squish fresh paint in each time I'm using it. So I guess they're dry, but as my brush is going into the paint, I have a little bit of water, of course, on my brush, and that also is activating them so I could use them and move them.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you for the questions. Makes like we're together, I like that. So I am addressing a very nice correction tool is a flat angled brush, clean water. And I could go in, and again, it was the same thing that I was doing before, but now I can get a little bit sharper edge with this brush. This is a great correction tool. And I know this is going to sound funny, but I actually like when I have to correct something on my painting because it shows you that I'm not infallible here. I make mistakes, but I just know how to kind of fix them as I'm going along, So I'm not afraid. I do call my classes Fearless Watercolors because I'm really not afraid to go in and paint and make a mistake. And then, there's so many correction techniques that we could use that are available to us. And it's important that that they're always there for us.
Jan, can you show the photo of the what you're painting again? Okay, great.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a way to keep it in screen for
Right.
you.
Right.
I apologize.
That's just helpful.
I know that there's something with Zoom. Margie, do you know what that is? There's some way to put like on the upper right corner, I don't know if it's called a whiteboard or something that helps you to keep the picture in the screen. I've never figured it out.
I have not figured it out. I have got very good at Zoom and then they change things.
I know. I do know. I feel your pain.
Me up.
I know. I feel your pain. I'm trying to figure that out because I see it occasionally on, on different Zoom classes that you see the picture kind of there.
Right.
And then I'm like, how did they do that?
Right.
So I'm going to go in and sort of start doing some of these reflections. Okay, I think it's a nice time. This is still drying up here. I've got blossoms going on. I'm not going to worry about anything right now. It's just too early to be concerned. I do want to stop this from moving a little bit right here. It's important to see that, there's mistakes. Is it a mistake? I don't know that it's a mistake. It's just, it bled out where I kind of didn't want to, but I could be so absolutely careful and and every single little piece be done with perfection, right? But I don't want to paint that way. And I don't want my paintings to have that kind of stiffer look. So I choose not to do that, right? I don't want my paintings to have that feeling. So therefore I'm willing to make errors or make mistakes or show you a correction technique because it just shows you that we all do it. It's not the end of the world. Painting isn't ruined. We're okay, right? We're okay. So I'm just using all my colors kind of in the water right back here. A little bit of my raw sienna, a little bit of my Brazino pink, and a little bit of my violet. It's just a really pretty little section back here of the ripples of the water in the distance. I'm going to save the white of the snow embankment. That glow to me is like super important. And this is just leaking out all over the place. So let me address that right now. So if I
those
wet
aren't silver black velvet brushes, are they? The
the little ones, this is what is this? This is a Holbein gold. This is, what is this? I don't even know. Escoda Prada, I think it is. Yeah, to me, it's about less the manufacturer and a little bit more about what I'm looking for it to do. So I just want to stop this reaction a little bit. It's probably going to be just fine, but I just wanted to stop it before it got too carried away. And then I have a really special, fun little brush that I've been really enjoying. And so I want to share that with you. I'll show you how I do the trees and all that kind of fun stuff. Love the glow. Let me show you where I'm at. I'm under here. Okay. Just love this. This is really coming down pretty far. What I do with my drawings is I say to myself, if I could paint it, don't draw it. That's my thinking. Okay. So if I think that I don't need to draw it, I will not draw that area and I will simply allow the paint and everything to sort of happen itself. So my drawings tend not to be very detailed. They're not very precise. The spots that I need to be precise are when it matters, but mostly I'm allowing my brush to do the painting for me. And now I'm just going to let this start dripping down. So I'm going to take my spray bottle and I'm just going to, I love drips. I love watercolor blossoms. I love all of that stuff. To me, that just says watercolor. And the way that I look at, is everybody on here a watercolor artist? Does everybody do watercolors?
The whole group does.
Oh, okay. So you guys all know just how special watercolors are. Because the way that I look at it is that this is the only medium that does this for us, right? It's the only medium that moves this way and has this kind of a possibility of excitement in it. So I think we're missing out if we're not utilizing that aspect of watercolors. And if I put a color down that I feel, well, it's not quite right, it's a little too this, it's a little too that, I don't worry about it because I can always add the other color and it will, give me the shift, the change, if I want it warmer, if I want it deeper. I'm sure you guys all are very familiar with the watercolor bead, which is right here waiting for me, right? That's just simply right there, absolutely waiting for me to make a move. And I will. I also notice, I'll go closer for you on this one, that very often certain colors are a little bossier than others. Certain manufacturers are a little bossier than others. So I watch that happen and I laugh when it happens because I just dropped in some raw sienna and it bossed every other color around. It said, get out of my way. I want to be here. It makes me laugh. Am I off camera? I think I am. Let me back out for you guys. And to me, water is just the perfect thing to paint in watercolors. It's just, oh, so fabulous. It spreads, it moves, it just does magical things. Now, I do have to put that arc in here of the darker color, right? So just adding a little bit of water. That watercolor bead is just waiting for me here. And really what I'm doing is I'm kind of just biding my time until I could get back to my sky and my buildings. That's really what I'm doing. A lot of what I'm doing. I really don't particularly worry about very much when I'm painting. I like painting fast. I like painting with great joy. You know, it's just, oh, I mean, look at those reflections. They're just killing me. It's just so beautiful. It's better. My goal is to make it better than the photograph, right?
Jan, what did you draw for this one?
I drew the tops of the buildings.
Yeah.
I did, and I drew the building really. I mean, the bridge, and
Right.
then not much else. I got to tell you, I didn't really have a lot. And you know what? I really should have taken a photograph of my contour, but my contours don't really have a whole lot of information. So I simply look to find the marks that I need that will help me get the gist of the painting quickly and allow me to be able to just enjoy the painting process. And by just what I'm doing now is just really observing what needs to have happen. Where do I really want more reflections or drips? Okay, something really fun is happening right here. Oh, so I'm going in, getting a little indigo, a little dragon's blood, a little bit of my violet. All three colors, not pre-mixed, are just on my brush. Oops, stay there. And this is all wet. Now I'm just doing wet into wet right here. Indigo, little dragon's blood, which is orange, and a little violet. And I'm tilting my paper so that it just drips on down. To violet, oh, I could add a little dragon's blood. A little darker, I go in and get some indigo. And I'm just letting it be a watercolor. That's what I'm doing. I'm just going to keep this angled up a little bit for myself. Yeah. So, if I could, if I know like these trees, okay, I did mask a little bit. I wanted to hold, I didn't want to have to worry about getting the whites back on the trees. I didn't want to use white paint if I could avoid it. So I did mask a little bit. But if I know that I could paint it, I will not draw it. And this was I don't know where I heard this, but I do like to pass on good information. I heard in a class, if draw where it goes. This is a good pearl, guys. Draw where it goes, paint what it is. That's the kind of thinking that I love to use when I'm teaching.
Say it again, Jan.
Yep, I'm going to say it again. When you're doing your contour, when you're plein air, when you're anywhere, anytime, however you get your drawings on your paper, draw where it goes, paint what it is. So in other words, if you can paint it, don't draw it. It's a good pearl. It's a really good pearl, guys. I want to switch to a rigger because I want to have some of this dark kind of start creeping back up. So I'm tilting my paper back the other way, and I want to get some of these reflections going back up before it dries. Yeah, I'll, in fact, there was one class, oh, I don't know how we got on the subject, but we started talking about these pearls, right? These ideas of that, you know, if something resonates for you and it's like, wow, I've never heard it before, but I think I could integrate that into my work, it becomes a pearl. So we were talking about how we would have these, growing up, us girls had what was called pop pearls. And we would put all these pearls together that would pop together, and we'd have a necklace or a bracelet, right? So yeah, so that is an interesting way in which to think about it, right? Is picking up pearls. And I think we pick up pearls every time we're painting, every time we're in a class. We're going to hear something, even though the instructor may have said it 150 times. You're hearing it kind of for the first time. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is that you just weren't kind of ready to get that information before. But now it makes sense. And now you're at a place where you can integrate it. So any pearls that you could pick up, okay, so let me go back to the thinking again. That's why I named my book Thinking Your Way Through Watercolors, is because just that. Every class that I taught was all about these thoughts. And so it just made sense to write them all down and put them all in one place. And then over the years, they kind of became a book. So it's not a how to paint. There are plenty of those out there. And I didn't want to be the 100th one out there, 110th or the whatever. That wasn't my intention to create another how to paint book. Because I never learned from those books. I don't know about you, but I never really learned step-by-step little, first you do this and you do this and you do this. It's like I never learned that way. And I had never seen a book that actually gave, there probably, and I'm sure there were tons of little tidbits inside the book, right? Each of these books. But to have them all in one place. So the book is kind of like it's kind of like a book that you could open at any time and you could find one pearl inside to wrap your head around. And you'd be like, you know what? I kind of heard that before, but let me try that and see what that's like for me. And giving yourself an opportunity to try that. Now, this is still really wet here, so I'm really enjoying kind of all of this fun little blending of colors. I'm staying here. It just makes good sense for me to stay right here. And just build some of that. So here's a good one when you're doing water. This is not in the book, but it's something I always say. If you're doing water, your ripples should be bigger in the front and smaller in the back. So much bigger here and smaller in the back. I want to do something that is. Oh, I'm sorry. Did anybody have a question? Maybe I talked over you. Okay.
Everyone, make sure you're muted, please.
Okay, so I'm on the bottom here and I want to just carry some of these reflections down a little bit. It's wet, so if I add a little bit of water with my rigger, this is a silver black velvet rigger, I can have it lightly showing. Everybody see that? And, you know, of course, ripples go horizontally also, so I could do the same thing. And I could create some ripples going that way also. Subtly, I don't want to do them everywhere. I just want them to be here and there. So they're further apart and larger as they're towards me. They're closer together as they go into the distance. So that's a really good little rule of thumb. I sort of lost my water's edge there. I think those reflections feel really good to me. I don't know that I want to go much more. I may try a little bit, maybe along the edge here to build a little bit more of the where the embankment is coming down. Just to give. Now, this is another good pearl, guys, and you probably all know it. It is so worth repeating. Color gets the credit, contrast does the work. So that means that when you're adding values to your painting, which is what I'm kind of starting to do a little bit right now, I'm making everything pop. You will not think, oh, look at all that contrast she has there. No, you won't think that. You will just see the colors that are being created as a result of the contrast. Color gets the credit, contrast does the work. That's a great pearl to heat. And the more that you paint, the more you'll understand exactly what that is. So I'm adding contrast as I'm going through here. And I'm way ahead of myself, but that's okay because I'm waiting for all this to dry. And I got some interesting things going on back there. I'm not going to worry about any of it because in the long run, guys, the story is here. This is a backdrop to what's going on here. And I'm really happy with what's going on down here. I'm not saying I'm done, but I'm liking what I'm seeing. Or I'm liking what's happening. I find it hard to say, oh, this area is done. Let me move to the next one. And I know plenty of painters that do that. And I'm like, I don't know how the heck you're doing that because I don't know. I probably want to darken the bridge more, but I've got more to do on here, right? But I'm really happy with a lot of these reflections that are going on. In fact, I want to just play with it a little bit more before it dries. So I always think color wheel. I'm always thinking, what colors can I create that gives me my darkest darks but yet will granulate. So if you look closely, while it's not the darkest color yet, I think we'll go darker. We'll glaze it maybe darker. I think that is fun to see a variety of colors in that, a variation, right? I think that's really nice. So these reflections here are a little bit, they're closer, they're smaller, a little sparkly. Okay, I'm going to go back to the top now. It's going to be much easier if I work upside down, which makes demoing very interesting sometimes, but.
Is the paper dry on the top?
Up here it is. It's ever so slightly damp, but I spent enough time down here to distract myself from up here. Now, when I'm painting, guys, this is another important thing that I do ask everybody to do, is to have a printout of what you're painting so that if you're a little lost, I can keep my finger where I am, because it's very easy to get lost sometimes. And so I can't do it here, and I'm not going to do it here because I could see my line. I could see my marks. I needed to know where this the top of the building is, right? I wanted to know where the top of that building is. Now, do I need to draw every single one of these windows to know where they go? I do not. I'm just going to paint them. I'll show you how. So when I'm painting, I always think of building my darks. And this is why I went right through here on the sky. This went right through. And here's a very good thing to think about, guys, is you don't have to paint it all. Just because you see it does not require you to paint every little aspect of what you see. You can pick and choose. In fact, when I'm done with the demo, I want to show you guys something that I saw an amazing demonstration the other day with a group that did some plein air painting. And at the end of the plein air, they had what was called, it was so much fun, Battle of the Brushes. And it was groups of, well, in the case, I stayed glued to the watercolor artists, of course, there was a lot of oil painters. And, but I stayed glued to the watercolorists, and they just, you know, they made things up. They saw what they saw. They changed what they wanted to. Now, let me just turn this right side up for you for a second, because I just painted that. Just that suggestion of buildings and architecture. And having this close by helps me to change it, the direction, and focus on just what I want to focus on. Now, this brush that I'm using here, you're going to want this brush, and you're going to want to practice with it. It's manufactured by King Art. And it is called, let me go closer and show you how magical this brush is. So if you look at that tip, it's not like a 000 or something that you might find, but I can get beautiful, fine little marks so easily with this brush. It's incredible. And I'll show you, I'm going to use it again on the trees. Lost edges. I love lost edges. Just, I don't know. There's something like suggestive about them that I just want always to have them in my painting. So allowing some paint to just kind of, you know, move through and not have everything be a hard edge. I think that's just the beauty of watercolor, or one of the most beautiful things about watercolor. I'm going to show you a little bit about architecture in a moment. So I kind of have a hint of some buildings here. So I'm just letting that paint kind of move over a little bit and carry it down. Notice how much I'm accessing this here. It's not me holding a paper towel, a roll of paper towels.
I'm sorry, what size was that King Art brush?
I'll tell you this, go to, well, unless you're adverse to Amazon, which I get if somebody is, they come in a set, and the set is a 12, 10, 8, and 6. So you can have, depending, you want to use the right size brush for the right job, right? So get them all, just get them all and get used to them. It is a magical brush. Takes some getting used to. I'm not going to say no. It does. But then most things do, right? New things do. Now, to get the stripes on the buildings, I want to show you a nice technique. I personally have never found my credit cards to be particularly helpful unless I'm buying something with them. It's just credit cards and me, it is for purchasing, it is not for painting or whatever, scraping or whatever. So I'm going to show you an idea that I came up with as an alternative to sorry, as an alternative to clearly I can't talk and paint at the same time. Alternative to using a credit card. So it's little scraps of paper. And these are just cut with, I recommend you cut old pieces of paper. These are 300 or 200, not 140. And I cut them all different sizes. And I have a very messy palette. I'm just going to show it to you. I mix everything in here. I love, it's just great stuff in here. So I'm just going to wet it a little bit. I don't clean it. I don't find any reason to clean it because I use it. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to get what I call delicious and fabulous palette mud. And I kind of pre-measured like what size I need to do this. And let me go closer and show you. Is that on the screen? Okay, good. So I'm just going to tap and give the appearance of windows. You could tap it and drop it down. You could draw with them. This side, I probably want to just melt some of these marks a little bit more. Just melt them down. I melt just with the tip of my brush. I don't love every mark being hard and perfect. It's really not my goal, is to paint perfectly. Again, that's my little tri-wedge. Giving the appearance of windows. So these are going to be a little longer, so I'm going to use the wider side of my paper. Start here. More palette mud. A lot of these marks are not going to matter because they're going to fall behind the tree. They are a little bit darker than I'd like. So I'm just going to lift it up a little bit with my tissue, and there it is. So there's also another way to do windows. Well, there's lots of ways to do windows. I just really love that one. And I feel it's fast and it's tells a story. I feel it looks better than perhaps brushes. Sometimes people use brushes to do that. I just find this a little bit easier to do that way. If you want to stop them, okay, so I'm just going to put a piece of paper here. I can get my palette mud, and then I can just sort of and I don't even care what's in here. There's greens and blues and there's everything in there, but that's okay. I don't need to know. I just find this a very clean and efficient way to do fussy buildings. Of course, this is going to be a tree here, so we're definitely going to be covering a lot of this up. If you're so inclined to keep going down. And again, those kinds of things will be very dependent on your style and how much of that you want to actually achieve. Okay. Palette mud, just going to go through these windows and just sort of pick some of them. And I do know artists that would just be so happy to do everything here with perfection. And I look at that, and I personally am not a fan of that because I don't see the artistry. No, I take that back. It's not that I don't see artistry. It's incredibly difficult to do paintings like that that have all that kind of perfection in them. But in the end, the ones that hold my attention are the ones that have interesting things to show me with their technique. Like I look and I examine, I'm like, how did they do that? How did they achieve that? What colors did they use? I'm much more engaged than a painting that somebody spent, I don't know, 50 or 100 hours on. That's just me personally. It's not a put down to anybody or anything. It's just my own personal take, which is why I love doing and teaching these kinds of techniques, because they give you an ability to interpret something. And okay, we're just into this for an hour. That's not bad. I got a lot of time. And look how much we got done in an hour. Lost edges. Love lost edges. I don't really know how much more I'll need to tell the story about those buildings. Maybe a little bit more. But I don't really have to decide that. Well, I guess I am deciding it a little bit. I'm just adding a little bit of raw sienna to the glow of the buildings. Arbitrarily, not really in any kind of random what I'm doing. And it's really just, I really need to work on that building there. But I'm just sort of giving it all kinds of suggestive marks. This is the tri-wedge brush. It's got a beautiful tip on it, but it holds so much information. It holds so much in it that when I press down, I could really get a beautiful mark. I want to just show this to you. Let me just get a powerful color, get my pink in here. So a beautiful tip. Look at how light that is. And yet I could do that with it, and then I could come back up. Oh, it's, look how much paint it's holding. A 0 000 can't hold that amount of paint. It just can't do it. So, you know, it won't. And it gives you beautiful calligraphic marks. So one of the things that I love to do is this idea of dots and dashes, I call it Morse code. That's what it is called, dots and dashes. But that idea that there are, you could create such beautiful marks with just dots and dashes and make things suggestive. Okay. Next up here will be the trees, I think. But it's too wet to go into there, so I'm just going to avoid it. Maybe add some lights onto the buildings. Some windows are a little lit up. If I was, you know, really a very detailed painter, I would, you know, take such fuss with that. But I think that that says what I wanted to, and the tree is going to be over that. So I don't know. I do see something going on with the sky here that I want to fix. So I'm going to go back to my indigo and my violet, and I just want to right around here kind of
What are you
fix.
trying to fix, Jan?
So let me go a little closer and I'll show you. There's this kind of weird kind of edging to it.
Okay.
So I just want to,
You're just out of the picture.
okay, okay, thank you.
Now you're back. Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. So I just want to like feather that up. I don't know, there was just like this weird, I don't know if you could see it, there's sort of that weird edging that happened there. It just means that I didn't feather that up all the way. So I want to just glaze over that. And that's going back to my indigo and my violet that I started with in the beginning. It's not what I expected to see there when it dried. So I just want to see if I could. I didn't think it was matter. I saw it kind of happening and I didn't think it was going to show up the way it did. And it did. So there you go. So it just gives me a chance to go over the sky again. See that right there? Now this requires me gingerly and carefully, or now I have to carefully carve out my building because I want to hold on to that edge. So I'm working now, it's wet. So I'm working wet into wet. And I still kind of have something going on there. So I may not be able to get rid of it. It may not matter in the end. But there is that odd little, maybe it's a cloud setting. You know, you can make up a story sometimes about things. Could be a little bit of the glow. Yeah, you really could make up stories. Okay. So again, I'm going to wait to work on trees up here because it's a little bit wet, but I want to build a little bit more of the darkness on my bridge. So I'm going to glaze it with my indigo. I think that'll be a good, so I'm going to work on an angle now. Okay. So to glaze it, I could glaze it and make it any color I want. I'm going to start at the top. Straight across. What glazing does is it gives me a chance to hold on to all the beautiful colors underneath and yet deepen it as I'm painting. I still see all the other colors, which is what I want. And I tilt it so that I could get the watercolor bead, and it kind of waits for me. This is an old bridge, so it's going to have a lot of, a lot of texture to it and whatnot. Sort of lost my embankment over here a little bit, so I'm going to get that back. Now that it's wet, I could just drop in a little bit more. Because it's backlit, right? It's, it's in shadow.
And Jan, you also have a line of the PBO across the top of the bridge, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm going to show you why. And I probably didn't need to do it, but I did it anyway. So I will show you exactly why I have that. It's probably something I could have saved, but I didn't. All right, let me go closer and show you. This bridge has got a lot of color in it. A lot of color. Let me change this angle a little bit. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I added a little bit of that pink. I just like the glow. Yeah, I do have a little bit that I saved across the top. I don't think I need to do that, but I did. This is really wet. So if I add paint, it will spread. And that's another technique that I like to do, is just what I call charging up. So I'm just charging up color, charge up color. I love to do that. It just enhances what's there and blends and moves so beautifully while it's still wet. And the bridge just comes alive, with the more colors that you add and the different colors that you allow to have kind of in here, right? It just makes it much more, like I said, I'm not a tonal painter, but I do believe in adding, value and colors and adding depth to our paintings to bring them, into a good place, right? So now's a good time. Let me put this into focus here. It's a good time to go into doing some of this, like shrubs and trees back here. I have something that I created. I never found one. I call it my sexy scumble brush. And what I did was I took a sable brush that I spent a lot of money on, and I was pissed that it got really messed up pretty early on. And I thought, well, what if I made it a more interesting kind of brush? And so what I did was I cut it, and it's all chopped up. And I'm going to show you the value of that, because you don't want to ruin your brushes doing this. So again, I'm going to go back in and just kind of mix a little bit of my indigo and maybe a little bit of my dragon's blood. And I'm going to get like this brownish kind of color, maybe a little bit of violet in it. Okay. And I'm going to scrub these marks. So it's sort of a dry brush, but you don't want to do this with your good brushes, guys. You just don't. Now, one thing also that I highly recommend is that you notice if you create a pattern. And I'm going to say this, even if you see a pattern, if things are just perfectly lined up, if they're just absolutely in line, same distance, same everything, change it up. Make them different shapes, different sizes, different. um, Make them different. Just make them different. Don't keep them all matchy-matchy. And the marks that I'm able to get with this brush are so unique. And you could kind of hear the scratchiness, right? It's a very dry brush. This will no doubt ruin your brushes if you have very expensive brushes, but you don't have to. If you have old brushes, if you have brushes that are, let's say, even cheap brushes, right? Cheap, crazy brushes, you could cut it the same way. Oh, and I have a video on a free video on my website on just how to make a sexy scalpel brush. Just requires a little pair of sharp scissors. Sort of switch to my King Art brush. And I probably didn't need to save that line there, but I did. And we'll see what it looks like. When it's, when it's all dry, we'll lift it and see what it looks like. When I mix in my palette, I don't mix it to be a matchy color and all the same. I do undermix so that when I go to pick it up, I'm picking up all the colors. And I'll just keep mixing more, no big deal, right? Just keep mixing more because I'm going to run out, but I don't want a bucket of this color. I just want to pull my brush through it and get the colors in. This is where it comes in handy to have this dry wedge brush. So I discovered that these King Art brushes, I'm just crazy about them.
I assume they're synthetic.
I would assume that with you.
Oh, okay.
It's a good assumption. I think it is.
Yeah.
I love them. Just a fabulous mark, and I'm able to hold so much paint on it and get these beautiful fine marks with it. See if I could go closer for you. Skippy lines, Morse code. Lines don't even have to touch the ends, the tips. They could just go right. Over everything. And because these are darkest, these are the darker marks on top of the buildings, they should read really pretty strong. You want to definitely have them be a good dark mark. Also, notice how far back I am on my brush. I'm not up here. I'm way back here. And that allows me to make a much more interesting mark than if I'm smack on top of it. That's a little wet up here still, so I'm gonna lighten that mark up. Okay, wait, I'm off camera, sorry. Dragon's Blood and Indigo, the two Mamari colors. There was a time that when I was teaching at the Art League of Long Island, there was I had a student there that he worked at the local Blix, and he it was great because he's like, I'm going to be the only Blix store that has dragon's blood in it. And he did. He had it behind the counter, and people would go in and they'd ask for dragon's blood. And he would say, what's the magic word? And there'd be like, there's a magic word. He's like, yes, there's a magic word. You say it, you could get the book, you could get the paint. They're like, Jamborino? They're like, okay, yes, you could have it. It was really funny. He was adorable. He enjoyed doing that. And it was kind of funny because he wouldn't let anybody buy it if they weren't in my class. I didn't ask him to do that. It just kind of happened in that way. But it was pretty funny. And it's pretty available, you know. They had changed the formula. I guess it got bought out by somebody, I'm not really sure. And they changed the formula, and I was so happy because I like it even better than it had before. It was even a better formula. Look at the fine lines I'm able to get with this brush.
You don't even need a rigger with that.
I'm sorry?
You don't even need a rigger.
Yeah, a rigger really won't give me these results. It's interesting because you're right. I have done these kinds of trees and branches and whatnot with a rigger. And what I found is that riggers are really good for rigging on boats.
Yeah.
And this is just a really different kind of mark. And it could be as light and thin as you need it to be, as skippy as you need it to be. Yeah, I'm in love with these brushes. I gotta tell you.
They should name the brushes for you.
I'm sorry, you should what?
They should name those Jan brushes or
They're so good. I discovered them by accident, which is what happens very often, Things just kind of come to you and they appeal to you when you try it out and you're like, oh, wow, this is really good. So what masking did on the bottom for me was such a good point to make. It just helped me to not have to worry about holding on to that white. And I personally really do love saving whites. I really do. But I didn't want to, have to think about it in this one. But normally I would save whites. I like saving whites. How are we doing on time? Oh, we got plenty of time. Everything's drying nice. Have time to lift the masking, which is what I wanted to do. one of the things that I see, I'll just point it out to you, as I find that a lot of my students will paint and they stop their painting. They don't go to the edge of the paper. And I do like to know that there's more that's going on, like that there's more to the story beyond the paper. Now, there's ways to get around that. And one of the ways is with just taking your mat and cropping it, right? That's a great way to get yourself there. But if you could get used to sort of painting off the edge, it's a nice thing to do. I'm going to build some of my darks down here. I'm going to go straight to my indigo. Lots of paint, almost no water. I'm going to get some nice darky darks in here. We have a little bit of violet and a little dragon's blood. Yes, my palette does get dirty. It does get messy. And I never worry about it. Let's see if we can. Yeah, good. Just want to indicate some of these trees back here. Little calligraphic marks. And this King Art tri-wedge really does help you to do that. I think that there's a little hint of a bench here. So I'm going to just put it in. Sort of hidden in the snow. Yeah, I got a big blossom there. There's like an edge right here. I'm gonna just build that a little bit. I just added a little bit of the Holbein lavender. And I'm going to spark that through my painting a little bit here and there. It is an opaque color. It has white in it for sure. And if you use it with a lot of water, I mean, if you use it with a lot of paint and not a lot of water, you can get a very nice color that sits on top of everything else. They make 3 colors that I really do I like having in my palette. One of them is Jaune Brilliant. I'm not French. Don't ask me to spell it. I'll put it into camera if I could find it fast for you. Let's see. No, that's not it there. Let's see if I could find it. Oh, here it is here.
Jaune. And then the word brilliant.
Yeah, so this is Jaune, and it's number 1. And I like it. You see, I'm able to go in, and you could take this right out of the tube. And I'm able to just get some whites back, even though they're not bright whites. I like them. And the other color that I like from them is Where is it? Here it is here. Lavender. So you see what it did here? It just kind of gave me a lighter opaque color. Just kind of nice to have in your palette. I don't use it as a way to like necessarily grab and get big area whites back, but sometimes it's kind of nice to just kind of lost this over here a little bit, so I'm able to get it back a little bit. And it just kind of popped a little bit here. If you guys probably know if your paper is a little damp or bumpy, you don't want to touch it with your by lifting your masking fluid. So what I'm doing now is something that I call, and I feel that this is a big thing that I don't see a lot of. Some people do it kind of instinctively. Is what I call bridging. It's not what I call it. It is known as bridging the palette. And what that means is that, and we sort of did it from the beginning because we determined early on the colors we were going to be building our buildings with and our sky and we used all the colors in our bridge and in, of course, our reflections. So what I'm doing now is I'm just using a little bit of the Jean Brilliant and a little bit of the lavender just to, again, put little sparky spots in of that color in other places. So the idea of bridging the palette is that the colors is not just a blue sky and, a brown bridge, and we are using all of our colors to create a harmonious painting. And the way that I look at that is this, okay? I like thinking this way, is we have the photo. It's a beautiful photo. It's a gorgeous photo. We love this photo so much, we decided to paint it. We have the photo. We don't need to paint perfectly to the photo. We want to interpret the photo and make it our own. That's what we want to do. And so to do that, we then find ways to be painterly, to find our artistic selves in our work. And that's what I'm doing right now, is just going through and finding little opportunities to create interest, have the eye around the painting. And I think I might be able to lift off some of the masking. Up here is dry, and now I have a nice white. And putting it on with that, those gum picks really help to get a really great kind of unique mark. I often find, I don't find the pens helpful, to tell you the truth. I don't like the pens. They clog. Yeah. They glob out. But this is a nice way to, oh, and I'll just show you this. I got these little trays at the dollar store, and I pour a little bit in here, a little of the PBO. I'm trying to get it out here because it's all dried up. But I'll pour it in here first, right? So, and then I close, because I have spilt a whole lot of masking fluid on my clothes, no doubt about it. Those pants are very painterly now. They're probably my favorite pants, but but yeah, you don't want to have that. You don't want to have that incident. So close it right back up, right? Just close it back up and just take it out of that little tray. That's what I do now. So I think I'm just about finishing up here. I will share this with you that I like leaving my lower right corner kind of vignette-ish. Just not having anything in that corner, grading it down or just having it very soft. So I have a place to sign my painting. So I do recommend that.
Jan, will you send me the photo for any of our artists that are watching that want to try and paint it later?
Yeah, I apologize that I don't have the contour, but
That's
know-
okay. People can make their own
with
with
the
your
help.
guidance. You have been amazing. But I was thinking that might be nice for people
sure.
to try
Yeah,
this.
absolutely. Be happy to. Oh, I could keep going with all kinds of stuff in here. This looks really, look at this little area here. Isn't that fun? It's so great. I think I could build that with a little bit of more interest there. But I don't want to, I'm kind of coming up to 2 hours here. So I figured I would just run it by you, like how much more you want me to do.
Well, let's see if anybody's got questions.
Sure, absolutely. Let's open it up.
Let's open this up. Anybody want to comments, questions for Jan?
Comments, complaints, concerns.
I have a question regarding the snow on the far, I guess, left.
Here?
Yeah, do you ever put like a blue tint or anything for like snow or just
I
leave it?
probably should. Yeah, I probably should add a little bit of a palette mud to that. So thank you for that. Yes. A little bit of shadow. It was just a little too white. You're absolutely right. And that certainly does help it. And you could certainly use a little bit of that lavender there too. That would be a great, yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for pointing that out to me. Anybody else see something that might need a little attention?
It looks really beautiful.
Thank you. And you see what you could do in 2 hours is pretty, it's quite a lot actually.
Is this quarter sheet, Jan?
Oh, yes, good question. Yes, it's quarter sheet. So I buy full sheets and I quarter them. Yes, good question. Thank you.
I like how your buildings behind are just
Suggested.
section, right? Right.
And all those windows that you might have been so concerned with,
Are not there, right? Exactly.
they're there. They
They,
just,
I mean, are not there that they jump out at you.
yeah, they shouldn't, right? And this is where we shift from it being a photograph to it being a painting. That's where we kind of go ahead and find a way in which to, what you leave in your painting and what you paint is, that's such a big part of your style, right? That's such a big part of your discernment of what you really want to have your painting say. And yeah, that's huge, guys. It's huge. So yeah, I'm just building this a little bit darker. So I wet the paper and I'm just going in and making a little bit more richer reflections. What you paint, what you don't paint, what you move around, what you decide to keep in, what you really don't want to bother with. You know what? Honestly, life's too short. What I don't want to bother with, I simply don't. This is not black. This is not neutral tint. This is not Payne's gray. This is my secret sauce, guys. Remember that. Every color that I'm used in my painting, I'm using in my secret sauce. So I build my darks. Build my darks with all that beauty. And what a great medium to do water with. Just the best medium on the planet. people would ask me in the beginning, well, did you ever think of using oils? And I'm like, no. That would be no. Oh, really? Why not? I'm like, oh, just can't deal with that building constantly, you know. This is fun, it's fresh. Let me see if I could lift this masking here for you guys. Little sparky whites that I have in here in the building at top. Yeah, it was just a way to save it. It certainly is not an even, I didn't have to do it, but I sort of wanted to just have that happen. I don't find that I enjoy masking.
Jan, if you were not going to use masking, but you did want to have some of those whites, would you
Mhm.
use white watercolor or would you?
I wouldn't. It's a great question. What I would do is I would simply paint below the bridge and above the bridge. That is what I would do. It's not the easiest thing to get white. I mean, we could get whites if we let me just the way to get a white. This is the one I use. It's Winsor Newton Designer Squash.
Mhm.
And the way to get it is to just go right into the tube, so you don't have any water. So let's say I wanted to have a little bit more, oh, I don't know, little marks on my bridge. I didn't save them, I didn't mask. Maybe you don't like the marks you left. Maybe you want a little bit more. Maybe you want some more whites on top of your branches. So, you know, watering it down with water is not helpful. But I kind of liked the idea of some of the snow kind of being on here. So that was how I put it. Now, there is other things that you could do, like you could, you know, I mean, listen, it's not, it's your painting, it's your own aesthetic. Unless you're entering it into the Transparent Watercolor Society, you know, maybe you might want to get like this is a pastel, right? This is a pastel pencil. You know, would it be terrible for me to add a little bit of this to it? No. Just pick these up. It's got a few colors to play with. I don't even know what I'm going to do with them, but I thought it'd be fun. So, so if I want to just go in and add a little bit of light to an area, okay? Is that so awful that I'm doing that? With,
Oh,
right?
right.
Why not? There's so many amazing tools out there for us, right? And, you know, I know that probably none of you really have a whole pile of supplies anywhere, of art supplies that are sitting around not doing anything. As we all do, you know, so. Look at those little hints of pink in there, right? I don't know. I didn't know I was going to do this, but boy, is that fun.
That's the four-piece set of King Art brushes that you talked about. Are those the ones that are the wedge?
Yes, they're called tri-wedges. Yes, tri-wedge or let me see, I think there's a couple of names I've seen for them.
Or the ones that are four?
Miracle Wedger, that's another name for them. Miracle Wedger.
That's it. Yeah, I see. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's got a 6, 8, 10, and a 12.
Right.
So let me put this side by side. Get everything out of here. So I showed you a lot of different techniques. let me kind of put it side by side by the photograph. And I feel I held on to the integrity of what I wanted to paint. I achieved really, I was really, really mostly interested in this area here. That really spoke to me. Is it as dark as here? No, but it's painterly. I'm happy with that, so maybe I would do a little bit more work in here, more of those striations. Got nice clear area for my signature to be. Yeah. That's today's show, kids.